Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Liana. Today I'm going to be discussing Ni no Kuni 2, The Revenant Kingdom. Don't have the game inside because I'm still currently playing it. I'm one trophy away from platinum. I also have the first game, which I've played at least twice all the way through, possibly 3 times. Now, this was released on March 23rd of this year. It's rated T for some reason, which I find kind of odd because the first game was rated E10 plus, and this is no more violent than the first, so that's a little odd. It is rated for fantasy violence, mild blood. The first game was rated E10 for alcohol and tobacco reference, comic mischief, fantasy violence, mild language, and simulated gambling. So the story is about a man named Roland who lives in our world. He's some sort of leader in his country, and he's on a way to a very important summit when all of a sudden there's an explosion and he wakes up in a different world, and he's quite a few years younger. The kingdom he arrives in is Ding Dong Dell, which you'll know if you've played the first Ni no Kuni. And the leader of that kingdom, Evan, is under attack. He's been the mark of a coup. Somebody is trying to take over his position as king. With the help of Roland and a few other people you meet along the way, Evan sets out to create a new kingdom and basically create world peace. He wants to meet the other world leaders and get their help, but the problem is a lot of those leaders have been taken over by an evil sort of substance. So I'm going to get into the features of the game, not really getting anything spoilery other than gameplay spoilers, I suppose, but if that still bothers you, then you can click off. So the battle system is quite a bit different from the first game. The first game you had your familiars kind of fighting alongside you, and if anything, you were playing as them more than you were playing as the human characters. In this game, you're playing as humans. So you'll have a party of 3 different characters at a time. And you do have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon that you can equip 3 at a time and kind of switch between them. They'll go up to a fill gauge of 100%. And your special attacks kind of depend on that meter, how strong they will be. Once you use that special attack, the meter goes back to 0 and you can switch to a different weapon. You can swap between characters in battle. It actually took me a minute to figure out how to do that. It's on the D-pad. It should be noted that a lot of the text in this game is quite small, which is difficult for a person like me who is quite nearsighted. Some of the important text is right at the bottom of the screen in this little bubble that goes by very quickly and is difficult for someone like me to read. So there were certain points in the game where I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it was probably in those text bubbles. So read the library if you're ever stuck like that. So getting back to your attacks, you do have a light attack and a heavy attack that's like square or triangle. Battles are real-time, just like the last game. They're not turn-based. The previous game was kind of a mix of both, though. This time it's just real-time. The battles take place on an arena, so if you're on the world map and you encounter an enemy, the arena will kind of need to be built for you. But if you're in a dungeon, you can just fight the creatures right there. The arena doesn't need to be summoned, so to speak, which is kind of cool. Now, you don't have familiars, but you do have higgledies. Higgledies are these little Pikmin-like creatures, which you've probably seen if you've watched any sort of footage for this game. And you can have up to 4 parties of higgledies at a time based on their cost, which is 1 to 4 per higgledy, depending on how good they are, basically. And each one has their own elemental affinity, like light, darkness, wind, water, etc. They each have their own set of skills. Each higgledy has 4 groups of skills like healing, buffs, Some of them can attack the enemy for you, like they can summon they can summon a higgledy knight that will come and fight alongside you, which is actually really helpful. And all you really have to do is look for the little circle on the battlefield. You press X and the higgledies will help you fight. There is kingdom building in this game. So after you've reached a certain point in the story, you can start building up your kingdom, which is called Evermore. Now, this is not as complicated as you might think. It's all laid out for you. There are different plots of land. You don't get to choose what goes there, so you just click on it. You build something, let's say the weaponry. The weaponry is only going to go in one place, and that's it. But you're going to need citizens, and you can have 100 of them in total. You get these through certain story quests or side quests. Once you have your citizens, you can put them into different buildings in your kingdom. You need king's guilders in order to build the buildings or to carry out research in your kingdom. Research will help you in a number of different ways. So if you would like to, for example, learn different spells, then you would carry out research at the spellery. Or if you would like to get more higgledies, then you would go to the higglery and carry out more research there. There are also a number of different buildings where you can farm resources for different equipment and things like that. That takes a little bit of time, but it's never so much where you're constantly waiting for hours. It's not that long. And again, once you reach a certain point in the story, you can start skirmishes. I have feelings about these. Anyway, skirmishes are basically army to army battles on the battlefield. So if you look at the world map and you see how you're basically in chibi form, that's how the battles are going to be carried out. You're going to have 4 units with you, which can be sword units, magic units, shield units, etc., whatever you want. And you can place them in such a way that there's like one in front of you, behind you, and either side of you, and you can rotate them. And you'll be fighting different kingdoms or bandits, a bunch of different things. You're limited as to how you command your units. You don't control each unit independently per se. They start attacking whatever's near them, and you can kind of tell them to go all out or what have you, but you won't be saying like, magic unit, attack over here. It's not that specific. And like I said, I have a lot of feelings on these, but I'm going to wait towards the end to mention them. There are these things called Dreamer's Mazes, which I quite like. Basically, it starts with a side quest, and you get this thing called a Dreamer's Key, and you can go into these optional Dreamer's Doors. Behind these Dreamer's Doors, there are a certain number of levels per Dreamer's Maze. As soon as you enter one of these Dreamer's Mazes, your danger level will begin. Now, the higher your dreamer level or danger level gets, the higher the difficulty there will be for the monsters in that dungeon. This is good if you want to level up, though, and it's also a good place to get resources. There's no way to save inside of these dungeons, so you kind of have to be prepared ahead of time. Otherwise, you have to abandon the dungeon early when you find a door, you die, or you finish it all the way through. And as I said, there are different numbers of levels for each one, the highest level being 30 levels, so it will take you a while for some of these. Now, to decrease the danger level, you do find these things that are like little pink orbs, and you can offer it up to an idol statue. The cost starts at 5 orbs and increases about double each time, so you have to be mindful of that as well. There are several different kinds of errands and side quests throughout the game. Now, errands and side quests are different from each other. Errands are things that you can keep completing over and over and over and over. A lot of them are fetch quests, or you have to complete a certain different kind of monster, and you'll usually get a small amount of experience and gold, but you'll get tokens, and you can trade in tokens for resources or new citizens for your kingdom. Side quests, there's a limited number of these, and they're imperative for getting new citizens, better resources, fighting certain tainted monsters, which, speaking of which, tainted monsters are the strongest monsters in the game. There's 50 of them, and then once you've completed those 50, there's an additional 10. You'll know what they are because they're kind of surrounded by a cloud of darkness, and you don't automatically fight them when you walk up to them. You'll be prompted, which is a nice idea. And they'll also tell you how high of a level they are and what type of monster they are, so you can kind of tweak your tactic tweaker. The tactic tweaker is helpful for setting things like affinity to poison, fire, how strong you are against certain types of monsters. So I think I've covered all of the features of the game, so let's talk about the pros and cons. So pros, there's tons of gameplay. I'm on hour like 113, something like that. And I still have maybe about 3 or 4 tainted monsters left, as well as the very last Dreamer's Maze. The Dreamer's Maze being the only thing I need to get my platinum trophy. There's really great music here. If you like the music from the first game, then this is no different, other than the fact that there are obviously some different landscapes, so there will be some different music there, but the main theme is still the same. This is still a very charming game, just like the first one was. Again, if you like the first game, you're probably going to like this, even though the gameplay itself is different. There's a lot of reminiscence going on here. You still have Ding Dong Dell. The world itself looks very familiar. The characters are similar. I don't think you'd be disappointed picking this one up. The battle system is more fun than Ni no Kuni 1. Ni no Kuni 1 just had some problems control-wise. You didn't have as much freedom. This one, you get, because you are at the actual control of your human characters more, you get to press buttons more. Put it that way. You're controlling your actual party more, because Ni no Kuni 1, you were using your familiars more and you weren't controlling them all that much. Because of that, I found the gameplay wasn't really all that boring. You weren't having to grind that much to keep your level up, which obviously that can get boring if you do. It was just a really beautiful experience. And to tie into that, it has really beautiful graphics. This is a beautiful game to look at. I know a lot of people were complaining about the overworld map. I thought that looked great. I have no complaints about that. What I do have complaints about. Your party AI can be stupid as shit. Yeah, there are times where I found myself wondering, we have a tactic tweaker. Why can't we adjust the tactics for our party members? Have you ever played a Tales game? You can usually adjust their AI in that slightly. You can adjust how much SP they're using, how much of their special moves they're using at a time. If they're using more healing spells versus offensive spells. There's none of that here. There's no way to dictate to your party what to do. So a lot of times I found them just kind of standing there, including when a big boss is about to unleash what is obviously their biggest attack. And my party would just kind of rush in and stand there and then die because they're stupid as shit. This gets especially frustrating with the last few monsters in the game that I'm experiencing right now because I'm hand-holding them the entire way through. And you have a limited number of healing items that you can use per fight. So let's say my 2 party members keep rushing in and attacking a boss that is obviously about to unleash his big attack. And I'm back here waiting because I know not to do that. Well, I'm going to run out of healing items on them and have to eventually face the fact that I'm either fighting alone or I'm going to have to flee and start the fight again. That is annoying. Likewise, in dungeons where you're going around an obstacle that's sort of in a circular formation, they'll just get stuck running into a wall trying to get to the next enemy. So yeah, they're not bright. They're not great. They're not bright. The skirmishes. Units get stuck on everything. If you're trying to push through a bridge, they're not going to follow you. They're going to get stuck on the perimeter of that bridge and not get through. And it takes a long time for those units to respawn where they're near you. Units often stop attacking for no particular reason, or they don't attack what you would like them to attack because let's say you're in a situation where there is, what is it called? Where there's, I can't remember what they're called at this particular moment, but it's like this small building that makes more enemy units. Obviously you want to take that out first before the actual enemy. And they don't attack that. They attack whatever is like moving. They don't like to attack stationary buildings. So the towers that are flinging arrows at you, they don't want to attack those. The cannons that are slinging explosive cannonballs at you, they don't want to attack those. They want to attack the moving units, which can be to your detriment. The actual flags that start skirmishes, these can take forever to spawn. There are only 2 that spawn per area, and it's often ones that you have already done. I can't express to you how many hours I spent trying to get this trophy for the 50 unique skirmishes because new ones were not spawning. This is a huge issue that I hope that they patch. Additionally, if you do encounter a new flag and you enter into that battle, say something happens and you don't succeed, that flag disappears and will disappear to an entirely different location, or it will disappear for hours at a time before it respawns again. So yes, they need to address this. There are no animated cutscenes in this as there were in the previous game. Studio Ghibli itself was not involved with this, as I believe there were a few team members involved, but the studio itself was not. And that's only a con for me because I miss those. It's not a huge thing, I just wish that they were there. There also are huge gaps where voiced scenes are just not there. The voice acting is just suddenly gone, and you have to read again for hours at a time before you hear their voices again. And I don't know if this was a budgetary issue, but it's so inconsistent that it's kind of a letdown. I've already mentioned this, but there are lots of issues with small text, so if you are someone like me who has trouble reading from that distance, then you might have trouble reading some of those dialogue boxes. And finally, the story isn't especially strong. It's not terrible, but it's basically you just going from kingdom to kingdom, seeing what's up there, kind of fixing it, moving along to the next one. And some of the more important plot points just kind of get wrapped up without ever actually addressing them, if that makes sense. I don't really want to spoil it, so I won't, but I just feel like there's not enough closure and not enough time spent on the actually interesting plot points. So that was a little bit disappointing, and again, I kind of wonder if they had had more time and maybe had a little bit more of a hand from Studio Ghibli, if this would have been a little bit better. So overall, what I think is that this game is as good as Ni no Kuni 1. They're very different in some areas. Ni no Kuni 2 has different strengths and weaknesses than Ni no Kuni 1, so they're equal but different. So it kind of depends whether you would want something without the familiars and a little bit more of a freestyle battle system, or if you want to stick with the familiars, something that's a little bit more Ghibli-esque and maybe a little bit more emotional, because this one really isn't. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the game. If you played either of them, let me know what you thought. And I post Mondays and Fridays, but I usually only post this type of content on my channel once per month. So I'll see you guys in my next discussion / review. Bye guys.